Welcome to the Stevia Show. It's the Stevia Show. Helping you expand on what you know. Throw in a meme of the week and a review of the screen. And to have a show that covers everything.
Hey, Team Stevia, and welcome to episode 116 of the Stevia Show.
A talk show podcast that covers pop culture, world news, local artistry, and everything in between.
As always, this is Steven.
And this is Lydia.
And we would like to thank everybody who joined us for episode 115. That was last week, so big shout out to Seth the Senpai. I hope everybody went and followed him on Twitch. That was a fun time. We really enjoyed it. And then today we have Josh Venable and Chuck Stikl of Z104.5 The Edge, Tulsa's rock alternative. But first, funding for the Stevia Show is brought to you in part by the following. Today's episode is brought to you by Bravado Wireless. Bravado Wireless is your go-to when it comes to all things connected. And now that spring has entered the chat, it's time for some spring cleaning, and that might mean it's time to upgrade your old phone. Starting on April 15th, you can get half off a brand new iPhone 12 or Samsung S9 for new customers, as well as part of our new premium data plan. For more information, call your local Bravado Wireless store or head to bravadowireless.com.
As well as community members like you. Remember, you can support us on Anchor or Patreon for as little as 99 cents a month. Thanks!
Awesome. Well, we hope you all enjoy the interview with Josh and Chuck. So today, Team Stevia, we have Josh Venable and Chuck Stikl from Z104.5 The Edge. So how are you all doing today?
Good. Thank you for having us on your show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being on. We appreciate it.
You bet.
This is my second day without coffee. I'm trying to quit the coffee thing. Yeah.
Why?
We'll see how I do.
I'm so sorry.
Well, I feel like it'll make me a little more healthy, a little more, and let's be honest, I need it.
That's an old wives' tale. You don't need to worry about you.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and get started. So can you all please introduce yourself for our listeners who might be out of state?
Chuck, you go first.
All right. I'm Chuck Stikl. I've been doing mornings at The Edge, our alternative radio station here in Tulsa, for 26 years. And this is my partner.
That's how he always refers to me. It opens a lot of doors for him. So my name is Josh, and I am the program director of The Edge here in Tulsa, and I do mornings with Chuck, and I'm also what's called the format captain of Alternative and Rock, which means that I oversee a bunch of stations that fall into that category in our company, or Stevens Media Group, which is the parent company that owns The Edge.
Awesome.
That's really cool. So how long have you guys been in Tulsa? Have you lived here your whole lives, or you kind of moved here, or how that start?
I moved here, I think it was in 94. And basically was living in, I'm from Milwaukee, was living up there and ran out of money, as one does when they're 20 or whatever, however old I was. And my parents had moved here a few years earlier. So I was going to just come for a month and do a little work and make my money back and then move back up there. And I fell in love with Tulsa.
I've been here since 13. I think it was 13. And so I moved here specifically for this job. I had been doing radio in Dallas previous to that, and then LA previous to that, and Dallas previous to that. And when I was very unceremoniously fired in Dallas, I needed a gig. And so I moved here in 13 to take over The Edge here.
Wow. That's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. And Chuck, you and Lydia are both Green Bay Packers fans. So there's something that you all have in common.
Yes.
Yes. Hold on, Lydia. I have something to show you. Hold on one second.
Oh my gosh.
You can see this.
Here we go.
Now wait.
My gosh.
But wait, guess who that is autographed by?
Well, it's not.
No Green Bay Packers. It is autographed by the band Garbage. because
Oh,
they're out of Madison. So Shirley Manson,
Because they're
yeah,
Madison.
you got it. So they autographed my Packers jersey.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. I'm jealous of the Packers jersey. I grew up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So it was like you picked the Packers, the Bears, so I picked the
Absolutely.
Packers.
Oh,
The
good
Vikings.
choice. Good choice.
Yeah, definitely.
cool. So this is kind of a question in regards about like career choice. So for people who don't know, like how do you actually get into radio? So how did you all become radio DJs? Because that kind of seems like a really niche career. And how do you all get into that?
Be willing to work for free
Okay.
for a long time. No, it's honestly it. It really was it.
Mhm.
It was, I had met some people who worked at the station and I offered to do anything. And I mean anything. I didn't care if it was a dirty job or whatever, or, hang out overnight singing music or whatever it was. I would do it. And my dad was just furious with me. Like, what do you mean not paying you? What kind of job do you call that? And, but that's how I got in the business, Josh.
I was in high school, and the radio station in Dallas was really close to where my mom and I lived. And so my first entry into meeting all of the the station there was called The Edge as well. And what I used to do is I would hear them say, hey, today Erasure are going to be in the studio at 4:00. And so I would get in my car after school, zoom home, grab all my Erasure stuff, cruise back up to the station and sit in the lobby and wait for the bands to come in. And so when it was Erasure or X or They Might Be Giants or any of these bands that I met that way. And so invariably I would always meet the DJs kind of at the same time, because the DJ would come down and, pick up the band or whatever. And so then over a summer, when I was 16 or 17, I started calling the station every day and talking to the same DJ who I'm still friends with and begging for a job. And it was like Chuck said, it was very much I'll do anything you want me to do. If you want me to get coffee, I can do that, or wash the station vehicles or make copies or whatever it was, type up things. And after a while, they let me start doing that. And I always kind of equate it to that part in Tom Sawyer where he gets all the other kids to whitewash the fence for him.
Yeah.
And they're happy for the privilege. And that was kind of me. I was very excited to be working for free. And so I did that for a few years before I really started. My responsibilities kind of increased at the station until 94, when I took over a 3-hour new music show on Sunday nights called the Adventure Club, which I subsequently did for about 18 years after that. But it was the same thing. It was the idea of it was more important to be there where I thought something was I never wanted to be at home. I didn't want to be at school. I didn't want to have a real job. I didn't want to do any of those things because it all seemed stupid to me in comparison to being there. So the idea of having working a real gig seemed asinine to me at the time. Just because I wanted to be there. I knew that's what I wanted to do. Chuck always tells a story about when he was a kid, he would make fake radio shows when he was really young. When I was 15, I remember hearing this one particular DJ and thinking, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. There was never an idea. There was never a fallback. There was never a plan B. There was never, well, if this doesn't work out, I can go and sell insurance, or I can go and be an engineer. Like, I don't even know what that means. I can go and I could be an architect. I could be a city planner. Like, all that seems ridiculous to me because I don't want to do any of that. I want to get free concert tickets and free records and hang out with my friends and not have to wear a tie. And if I don't want to shave, I don't have to. And you know what I mean? And Stephen, what you said earlier about it being a very niche thing. I remember when I got fired one time, my mom goes, well, you can just go somewhere else. Why don't you pick a place to go and you can go and live there and work? Because it doesn't work that way. There's only in each individual town around America. If I wanted to stay an alternative, there's probably 5 to 7 people in each town that do what we do. So you take the top 100 markets and you say, okay, well, let's say that there's 600 people around the country that do what I do. Well, if you're going to sell insurance, there's 60,000 people in America that sell insurance or whatever. And so it's not always that easy. And that's why when you see people get fired, and in the industry, a lot of the time they call it being on the beach, and you see these people on the beach for a really long time. And it's because they don't want to move out of Cedar Rapids or wherever they grew up, and they go, well, my life is here. I don't want to move out of Cedar Rapids. I'm just going to wait for another gig to open up here. And a lot of the time that doesn't happen. I mean, in the theme song for WKRP, it says town to town, up and down the dial. And that is kind of an idea that people in radio have, that if it doesn't work out in town A, you have to pack up all your crap and move to town B. And when it doesn't when it doesn't work in B, you move to C and D and so on and so forth. So that was a very long-winded answer to your very short question.
No, that's
No,
fine.
it was great.
We're all here for conversation.
Yeah, and it's very interesting too that you both kind of have the same, like, you've just always known that you wanted to do radio, and then you did whatever you could to get there, and then now that you're here, you want to stay. It's very interesting to me because I never had that. I never knew what I wanted to do in life until never. So
well, and I think too with radio that you see a lot of that going. It's kind of split. The vast majority of the people that I know that are in radio fall into those exact two categories. You've always known that you wanted to do it, or I didn't know anything else what I wanted to do in my life, and this seemed easy, so I'll just do that. I know a ton of people that fell into radio because they didn't have anything else to do, and they said, well, I like music. And they started hanging around the radio station, and it ended up being a 40-year career or whatever. I know plenty of people like that. So those are the very lucky ones. So maybe that's you. Yeah. Maybe you can do that.
Maybe. So guys, what is a day in the life at work look like for you guys?
It looks really, really early in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you're getting up at 4:30 in the morning or whatever, and you are heading into the station, and there's a lot of prepping to get the show ready and make sure you're on top of everything you want to do. There are this is a business now where it used to not be like this, but it's a business now where you wear a few more hats than you used to. You used to just be, if you were the morning guy, you went up there, you did mornings, you did a little stuff afterwards, and then you're out of there. Now we have a lot of different jobs. So sometimes it's getting other stations ready to go in the morning as well too, all that stuff. So you're up there, you're prepping, you're getting prepared. And then of course you have the 4 hours to do the show. And then everybody thinks, well, in the old days you did go home afterwards. A lot of times you might do a little production or a little, putting stuff together for the next day. But for the most part, you were out of there within an hour. And no, now our day's just begun after the show's over. Is that right, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, Chuck does a lot of things, like helps make the sweepers, or these things that go in between the two songs, like the funny bits or whatever. And so Chuck helps make a bunch of those for our station in Rochester. I also, as program director, come up with the contest that we're going to do. And I work really closely with Slater, who's our promotions head, who is also on the air. So he's got a couple of different hats. I run the 80s station that we have here. And so it's constantly, deciding, do we need another Kenny Loggins song or less Kenny Loggins or whatever. And so I'm doing that. And then I'm overseeing like I said, the other stations that are around the country, like our rock station in Monroe, or our rock station in Spokane, or our rock station in Monterey, or whatever, and helping those program directors get the most that they can out of their radio stations. And so, yeah, doing mornings is, I don't want to say it's a small part of what we do, but it's a fraction of what we do every day. And like Chuck said, yes, it's waking up very early in the morning, and, radio, like, and I don't want to put too big of a spin on it and go, well, with radio, it's not rocket science by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also kind of a 24-hour job, where if something big happens in the middle of the night, Chuck and I need to be pretty aware of it. So that's the first thing that we're talking about in the morning or whatever. So it is a fraction of what we do, I guess.
Is the morning gig the gig everybody wants? Is that like the mornings is like you've made it kind of thing?
Well, it's the gig. It's the gig I always wanted. I think it's the gig Josh never wanted.
That's 110% true. I think most people. So I guess it depends on how much of an egomaniac you are. If you really like the idea of the most amount of people hearing you, you want to be on in afternoons or mornings. Okay, so the job that I always wanted, and if I were not a father, I would be doing overnights because they were my favorite. When I was young and doing overnights from midnight to 6, I had more fun doing that shift probably than anything else. But yes, the idea of being heard by the most amount of people, it's mornings and afternoons. Yeah, and so Chuck always really liked it. We kind of fell into it together, where we were not a prepackaged morning team the way that you see a lot of people around the country are. We really haphazardly got thrown together when he was doing the show with this guy named Bobby Butler. And Bobby went on vacation.
Yep.
And so I filled in extremely reluctantly. I did not want to. I've never thought of myself as a morning show person. I still don't. And so I went and I did the show, and my boss came to me that afternoon and said, "It sounded really good this morning." I said, "Oh, thanks." And I didn't really give it much more thought. And Bobby was gone. Where'd he go?
I don't even.
Yeah, he was somewhere like far away.
It was like for 10 days or something like that, right?
So he was gone a really long time. So by about the third day, my boss comes over and says, "Hey, my neighbor came over last night to tell me that he thinks that you should be doing the mornings with Chuck." And you just think, like, who cares what your neighbor thinks? Right. Like,
Right.
Who cares? I don't care what your neighbor thinks. And so then that was my boss. And then the owner of our company passed by me in the halls, somebody who could squash me in Chuck's career with the snap of a finger. And he goes, "So I hear you're going to be taking over mornings." And I was like, no, I'm not. No, I'm going to go right back to doing my shift. And he goes, "So you're going to be taking over mornings."
So you kind of got voluntold.
Yes, so I'm going to be taking over mornings. And he goes, "Well, I think that sounds great." Okay. And so then when Bobby got back, I took over mornings. And so, yeah, so it was never something that I wanted to do by any means. At the time when that was happening, I was taking my kid to the bus every morning, and, it was that idea of waking up and doing all this stuff with my kid. And then it kind of became, holy crap, how am I going to get her to the bus, or how am I going to pick her up from school, or, whatever it is. And it kind of threw a wrench into things. But then I think Chuck and I really, settled into a groove after a pretty short amount of time. You agree with that, Charles?
Yeah, I'm the Grim Reaper working with morning show partners. I've been through a lot. But you know the times where there's chemistry and the times that there's not. And it was quite evident right away when he was just filling in. It was quite evident that there was some chemistry there that really should be tapped into. The company made the right decision by kind of forcing the hand. They all saw what the potential was there, and sometimes it's there and sometimes it is. It's like I compare it to if you watch an actor who has been on different shows, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it's got to have that chemistry that makes it kind of special, and that's, I think, what we have.
How many morning show partners have you had? We counted them up a million times, but it's something like 14 or 15, right?
Oh, wow.
It's around there. Yeah. In all different. Some of them I had 2 partners, and some I had, 1 partner, and some I had, it was a morning zoo kind of thing. I mean, so there was a lot of different configurations, but this one really seemed to click.
Gotcha. So it's always been Chuck in the morning since 1995. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
There was, I think, a couple months or whatever, sometime in the middle there where I was doing afternoons, but they quickly put me right back on mornings.
Gotcha. So Josh and Chuck wasn't always Josh and Chuck. So it didn't even become Josh and Chuck until after Josh was here for a little bit.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Gotcha. So Josh, kind of going back to more of like the local scene. So after working in larger markets like Los Angeles and Dallas, like you mentioned, what can you say about Tulsa as a city, and how does our music culture compare to theirs?
As far as the music culture, I think that I guess it ties into the larger question of what do I think about Tulsa. I'm happier here than probably anywhere I've ever been in my entire life. I love it here. My daughter and I were just talking about that last week, and I love my neighborhood. I love this town. I love the amount of culture that we have. I love being able to prove people wrong when they say things like, "Oh, go home," and then you go, "Well, let me sit you down for 45 minutes and tell you all the amazing things that happen here in Tulsa." And I love that bands love playing here. I love how engaged. This is something that a friend of mine he's a manager, and he was telling me the other day, he goes, "I can't tell you how nice and refreshing it is to have a station that wants to be involved with these bands and wants to do something other than we'll just do a meet and greet at the venue and then we'll, whatever." And the bands don't enjoy that either. And so that's kind of something that as a radio station, we're constantly trying to find new things to do with these bands. And, during the pandemic, it's obviously been very hard because nobody is on tour. And so that's why we did the amount of isolation interviews that we did on Zoom. And I mean, I think we did 30 or something in a month and a half. And, we are those winning weekends where we're always trying to give out as much stuff as possible. And I love the idea that Tulsa is very connected, not only to going to shows, but also I see more engagement with the radio station than I did in Los Angeles or Dallas. I see people excited about listening to the radio, and that's very refreshing for me. Because when I was a kid, that's the way that I was. The radio was ultra important to me growing up. I mean, if I had to pinpoint the things that musically made me the person that I am, and by an extension, just the person that I am in general, because I think that depending on what kind of person you are, music can do that for you. Mine was 120 minutes on MTV, watching that Sunday night show, and then listening to The Edge growing up in Dallas. It absolutely changed my life. I mean, I remember where I was the first time I heard the Smiths. I remember where I was the first time I heard Who Do You Love by the Doors. I remember the first time that I heard Edie by the Cult, the first time I heard Never Tear Us Apart by NXS, whatever. I remember these things. And so I want that for people as well. My kid the other day, out of nowhere, we were driving in the car and she goes, "Do you like your job?" It's like this is a really heavy conversation for 7:00 at night or whatever. And I go, "Yeah, I love my job." And she goes, "Do you think you make people happy?" And I was like, "Geez Louise, go back to sleep." And I said, "Yeah, I mean that's why I wanted to get into this. You want people to be happy with what you're doing, and you, especially doing a morning show, I think you want the people to hear something that's going to try at least put them in a good mood on a crappy Tuesday when they have to go in for a staff meeting or whatever. You want them to hear something to make them go, "Oh, okay, all right, well, now I'm in a decent mood," or whatever it is. And whether that's me and Chuck making jokes, or it's random facts, or it's music, or it's whatever it is. I think that's why we all kind of got into it in the first place. Yeah. So do I love Tulsa? Yes, I love Tulsa. It's amazing. I don't ever want to move. I don't ever want to move out of my house. I want to be buried in the backyard over there because it seems like a hassle to move. So yes, I absolutely love it here. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I think this town is fantastic. And I love the close knit aspect of this town. I like seeing listeners that I've watched listeners grow up. That's the most, it's amazing. I've seen listeners from when I got here 8 years ago that were seniors in high school that I see who are married with a kid now, or have graduated college or whatever. And so it's amazing. Yeah. I love it here.
Absolutely. And I think that that's such a big, important part is like the Edge family. Like that's such a real thing, you know, like we hear it all the time. Yeah. And like back to that, like you all helped me get married, you know, and stuff like that. It's just like, you all are so like, on board with, you know, interacting with the listeners. And then you also take the bands to the Outsiders house. Like you have your S.E. Hinton shirt on. So I think it's cool for us local Tulsans that you all care so much about the city and you want the bands that come through to see how awesome and how cultured of a city we are. Because I mean, I personally feel like not a lot of people are like, Tulsa, like what's going on there? But then once you actually come here and see the history that we have, you know, like Jack White bought a house here because of how much he loves it. And I think I think Tulsa is kind of like a hidden gem, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, I don't know, Charles, you may have to help me out, but it was like 2 years ago, whatever, that Silver Sun Pickups came to town and we did this thing. It was called, I don't remember what the hell we called it, Show Off Your City or Why You Love Tulsa or whatever. And we picked winners, and this couple went with us, and we took Brian and Nikki from Silver Sun and we went to the Philbrook, to Canes, to the Outsiders house, to Angeline,
Center of the Universe,
we took them to all these places. And it was supposed to last like an hour. And I think we spent 4 hours with them or whatever. And every time I see Brian or Nikki, that they always talk about that and how much fun they had. And, you know, and yeah, there is an idea of, and English, going back to you a second ago, when you said we helped you get married, what does that say about you, that you were so connected to the radio station that you wanted these two chuckleheads to share in something that's like, that's one of the most important life decisions that you're ever going to make. And you want these two to help you? Like, good Lord.
Well,
I mean, good luck, English. I hope this doesn't go poorly for the rest of your life. But you know, I mean, what does that tell you? And I would have been the exact same as you. If I could have had one of my favorite DJs help me with something like that, that would have been amazing, you know. But that's like you said, we're always trying to show the city off. Because when Phoenix play here, and they don't play Dallas, they don't play Austin, and they don't play the other places around here, you know, what does that tell you? And I think that has a lot to do with the relationship with the radio station and how much they love this town. You know, I mean, Jack White is another great example. The guy loves this town. There's a lot of bands that we play that just love it here, that you see do shows here that aren't playing in Kansas City or Little Rock or Wichita or Dallas or Austin, where we will be the one stop in this region. And so, yeah, we're really proud of that.
We're a top 10 market for concerts in all sorts of different genres, not just in alternative, which surprises a lot of people. But you have to remember, we have a lot of venues.
We do.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got two casinos that everybody kind of forgets about. Oh yeah, we have shows that happen there all the time too. And then we have Vanguard, we got Canes, we've got you know, we've got obviously Brady and BOK, and there's also bands that are you know, also kind of a little bit of part of our genre playing at 18th in Boston and stuff like that. I mean, there's just a lot of different stuff happening, and a lot of places to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chuck, since you've been here a little bit longer, so like whenever you moved to Tulsa, like what was initially in your head? Like, were you like,
tumbleweeds.
Okay.
It was going to be tumbleweeds and a lot of cowboy hats. Howdy partner. That was my complete impression on what I was going to see. And what I found, first of all, moving from the north, that is a terrible place. I don't know if you've been there between the months of, say, I don't know, October and April, May. It's cold. It's terribly cold. And I remember golfing on New Year's Day, the first few months I was here. And I'm like, oh, no, this is so much better. But then, but the music in this town and the history of this town really blew me away. And it has continued. In fact, I would say this, as great of history as we have in town with music, with Leon and, JJ Cale and going back to, all that stuff, it has amazed me what has happened out of this town since. And I'm not necessarily just talking about bands coming out of here and what have you. Tulsa seems to have made itself a mark in a lot of different ways, including film and, in pop culture. It's so much fun when people come from out of town. The comments I always hear from people are, boy, you guys really love your city. I mean, I've never seen a city celebrate itself so much and enjoy itself so much. And that's a good feeling to have. Mm-hmm. That's a sense of pride. And it really is something that I've seen grow. And I think a lot of that was revitalizing downtown and some of that stuff too. But I mean, the pride we take in this town, it just really blows me away. And I promise you don't see that everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but whenever in the beginning he takes a ride in that taxi cab in Wichita, and he's like, "Oh, right. he's proud of his town. That's a damn rare thing nowadays." And I feel like that's people about Tulsa. So, Josh, you're also releasing a double vinyl record called Artifacts. So I know that kind of ties back into your time at the Adventure Club. So tell us more about that.
So I did this show in Dallas. It was a Sunday night, what they call specialty show, where it was a lot of new bands and by extension, a lot of local bands in Dallas at the time from 94 on. And so I would have a whole bunch of bands record acoustic sessions when they came in, and bands like the Old 97s or Hagfish or Will Johnson from Centromatic or whatever, Isley, a bunch of bands that people might know now. And then, national bands, but then a bunch of, unheard of bands that outside of Dallas. And so this company and I got together last year, I guess. We've been talking about it for almost a year, and decided to put out a bunch of these sessions, 24 of these songs on a double gatefied, like colored vinyl record, where all the money is going to St. Jude. And so we're making a real small amount of them. And so that went on sale last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't know. But it's cool what this label in Dallas is doing. I thought it was a really great idea. They're called DFWLegacySeries.com. And what they do is they go back and take bands from that era that were in the region that never put out anything they didn't put out this release on vinyl. So, for example, one of the other ones that they're doing is the Nixons' first one. And so that was never on vinyl. So they went back and they talked to Zach Malloy, and then they said, why don't we just do this on vinyl? And they make another, very short run. It's all colored vinyl. And, so that's what we're doing. So if you'd like to buy it and you're watching this, depending on when this goes up, I don't know if there'll be any, but it's DFWLegacySeries.com, and all the money goes to charity. So truthfully, you're a bad person if you don't buy it.
They're really great recordings too. I got to tell you, I mean, it's really some great recordings. A lot of times when you do those sort of things or whatever, it seems like radio stations aren't necessarily equipped to do a high quality recording, and actually they're really good high quality recordings.
Yeah, thanks for asking about that, Stephen. That's something that I'm really proud of, and like I said, all the money goes to a good cause, and so that's something I was excited about as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, not everybody gets to say that they have their own compilation on vinyl. Like, that's also just a super cool thing.
Listen, it was 27 years in the making, I think, since and truthfully, it's because it was out of sheer laziness more than anything else. As Chuck can tell you, when I get excited about something, I can get really driven. But it's the lead up to the excitement that he's probably heard me say the words, "That seems like a hassle," more times. I mean, I've always had, I guess, a few catchphrases that I fall back on, and that one, or "that seems pointless," "I don't want to do that," "that seems boring." It's just because at the end of the day, I would much rather sit on my couch and watch Murder, She Wrote than call bands and get licensing agreements and publishing agreements and pick out vinyl color and all that other stuff. It all seemed like a huge hassle. And then when I was knee deep in it, I started to get really excited. I was like, oh, this is going to be so fun. And I get to hold my own record, and we're going to give all this money to sick kids, and this is going to be fantastic. And so, yeah, so now I'm excited about it.
Awesome. And the moral of the story is, if you don't buy the record, you don't like St. Jude's.
Right, you're a terrible person.
Right.
That's right. You
Yes,
want
it
children
is.
to die. Yes. It's awful.
Hey, I
It
wasn't
is.
going to say it. So Chuck, I'm glad you did.
It is DFWLegacySeries.com, and you're picking the one that says the Adventure Club. You know, Zach Malloy and all of them, let them fend for their own sick kids. But I need your money to give to St. Jude's.
All right,
Awesome.
good. Team Stevia will back you up on that one.
There you go.
So, Chuck, you've been a familiar voice on the Edge since the beginning. What has changed the most about Tulsa's music scene since then? And is there anything you wish would come back?
You know what? It's kind of interesting. No, I actually like it more now than
Oh,
I think
wow.
I ever have, because of the fact it is not. I mean, it used to be so much like either you're in this lane or you're in that lane, and you're in that lane, and nobody mixed together. And
Mhm.
now I see a definitely a more communal effort as far in different genres, trading things off. And I've really actually been impressed, especially with what we have going out there now. Now, it's not to say that there weren't some exciting times. We've broken a few bands throughout the years, and have gone national, and that's always special to me too. But I really like the scene, and you have to understand, right now we had a year of a pandemic, so a lot of ground that we had gained,
Mhm.
we have to kind of restart up again and kind of get
Yeah.
it going again. We don't know what it'll look like, and we don't know how it will go. But I am encouraged by it. I'm also encouraged by the fact that the scene now seems a lot more accepting to go out and go tour,
Mhm.
and not just sit here and play music. A lot of acts have always, how can we make it? How can we make it? You got to go out there, and you can't be playing to your same crowd. You got to go out there where you're having to win 12 people over
Mhm.
every time, and you just go around and you keep going around and you keep doing that. And maybe it's regional that you do that. But I'm really encouraged by the amount of artists now that are going out and are doing the touring. They come back here and they'll play here, and you get them shows all the time, but they will take 3 months to go off and go do something. They will take a month to go off and go do something. There's artists now that go over to Europe and do quite well over there. It's really an exciting time for a lot of different genres. And I love the fact at how much these artists seem to respect the different genres and incorporate some of that into what they do. And it's really cool. And it's kind of got a unique feel to it here in Tulsa. So no, I think a lot of people might be surprised. I'm probably more encouraged now than ever with what we're doing here in Tulsa.
That's amazing. I love that answer. I was surprised. Yeah. I was surprised that
Right.
you're going to say that, because, I assume that it's like, oh, well, there's a lot of cool stuff happened back in the day or whatever.
Right.
and
Right.
You're like,
And there
no,
were-
today's the best.
No, it is, because there's more of it. That's the thing that I think is exciting. And I also I see that a lot of these artists are just trying to get better and working on what they do and trying to work on that, as opposed to, well, we just got to try to get signed. We just got to try to get signed.
Right.
No, it's not always about that anymore. And it's about really perfecting your craft and being the best person. We live in a day and age now where there are artists on YouTube and that who don't have a deal all of a sudden become super huge. I mean, there's a lot of different things that can happen with acts now. And I'm glad to see that they notice it, recognize it, and seem to be putting a lot more effort into it, instead of whining about, well, why isn't anybody playing us on the radio, or why aren't they doing this, or why aren't they signing us?
Mhm.
Instead of doing that, it seems to me that they are more and more doing the work. that it
Gotcha.
takes.
Not just thinking that it should be handed out to them.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's so funny, because especially back in the day, we'd get a lot of that, I don't understand why you guys don't play us. You know why we don't play you? Because you're not as good as these nationally signed acts. I'm sorry to say that. I mean, yes, do you pack that bar in? Great, sure you do. Does everybody have a fun time listening to your 3 original songs and your 16 covers? Sure they do. But no, you're not going to get signed and you're not going to get played.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So Chuck, you're telling me that you're not going to play my Blondie cover band on the Edge, correct?
No, there's one exception to that, and by the way, it's not cover, it's tribute band. And if you do the Smiths or if you do Morrissey, you got a shot. You probably could open up for Blue October.
Okay.
Listen, English, if you really do have a Blondie tribute band, you could play with my Smiths and Morrissey tribute band anytime you want. There's actually a great Blondie tribute band out of Houston, and the girl does the full, get up, and it's great, and they're really good tribute bands. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I unfortunately do not have a Blondie tribute band. Debbie Harry, I just have I have a print of her over here, so that was just the first band that I saw.
Don't tease me, English.
Yeah, hey, sorry, Josh.
Don't hang it in the window if it's not for sale, sir.
Sorry, no, nope. All I have is this podcast. That's the only thing that I've got going. So, all right. So, with alternative being such a difficult genre to define, how do you all curate the music that plays on Z104.5?
Let's go to Josh on this one. Yeah.
Whatever we like. Is that the easiest way of putting it? So it's funny. I was in the car with my kid the other day and Black Pumas came on. And I said, because I really do value my kid's opinion. And so I asked her, what do you think of this? She goes, yeah, it's totally fine. Is this what you should be playing on the Edge? And I said, okay, well, talk that through. Why? She goes, it doesn't sound like a lot of the other stuff that you play on the Edge. And I said, okay, well, by that rationale, if we play Panic at the Disco and then we also play Alice in Chains, does that sound like the same thing? And she goes, all right, never mind. I just want to listen to my, she's like, I just want to listen to my own music. Just please let me put my headphones on and stop grilling me. I just want to go back and listen to my YouTube nonsense or whatever. And so, yeah, I think that alternative now, we've talked about it in the past where in the late 80s, a lot of alternatives sounded vaguely the same. Early 90s, it started to change with bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, even just those bands. But then you still had dance bands that were being played. The early version of like techno music or whatever was getting played. And then you still had all of the leftovers from the 80s, whether it be Replacements or U2 or whether it be Morrissey, Susie and the Banshees, whatever. And then as the 90s went on, it went through these really weird cycles where there was rap rock was in there for a little while, and the acoustic stuff, the Lilith Fair stuff was really big for a little while, and Dave Matthews. And then in the early 2000s, there was a definite Franz Ferdinand type sound, and you had bands like The Bravery, who are as generic as the day is long, were making records that were turning out to be hits. And you go, well, are The Bravery really that good? Or is the scene so incredibly weak right now that we're letting these bands become big? She Wants Revenge, The Bravery, these like, and there's nothing wrong with these bands. They're nice people, whatever, but they're generic. They are the Everclear of their day, where Everclear, you turned your video off, Dingle.
No, there we go.
There you go.
Somebody tried calling me, I guess.
So anyway, so you have all these bands that were not really all that good. And so I think now, though, to get back to the original point, I think that it is kind of an all over the map sort of thing, that we're playing Greta Van Fleet right now, who sound absolutely nothing like anything else that we're playing. But then we're also playing the Lumineers, who sound totally different from Greta Van Fleet. And then we're also playing Black Pumas, who I guess are kind of in a Lumineers sort of vein. But then you're also playing Lovely the Band, and you're also playing Nathaniel Rateliff, and then you're playing Arctic Monkeys, and all these things. I always really liked the idea of alternative, a whole bunch of junk fitting under one umbrella, where when I was 16 years old, I think 16, and I went to the first Lollapalooza, and I saw Jane's Addiction, Susie and the Banshees, Violent Femmes, Living Color, Henry Rollins, Ice-T, and it was all of these things that Susie and the Banshees did not fit in with all those other bands at all. The Violent Femmes didn't really fit in with a Jane's Addiction, and Living Color were kind of the harder with Rollins and Ice-T and Body Count. And so I liked that all these things were totally different. And then on the side stage, one year at Lollapalooza, you might see Nick Cave or Stereolab or whatever. And these things were absolutely nothing like what you were seeing on the main stage. And so I've kind of always looked at that as a microcosm of what is going on in alternatives. So how do we curate and pick what we want? I mean, definitely we're aware when somebody puts out something new, whether it's 21 Pilots. Are we always going to play the new 21 Pilots? Absolutely. We don't have many bands in our genre that can fill the OK Center. So we know that we're going to probably play it unless it's absolutely terrible. That being said, there's a real high profile alternative edge band that's about to put out something new. And I've heard it, and it's atrocious. And
Oh no.
Are we going to play it? The answer is probably no. And they were one of the bigger bands in our format for a good many years, and I doubt we'll play it. So I think that there's always been this idea of, for the people, the internet has made experts out of everybody on everything, whether it is politics or whether it's vaccinations or whether it's whatever. And music is absolutely no different, where you can get on the internet anytime and find someone somewhere that says, oh, well, you know, their parent company tells them what to play, and they're forced to play blank, and that's why they don't play blank, and that's why my band ... can't get on the radio, whatever. That is not true. None of that is true. I think my boss has come to me once or twice in 8 years and gone, hey, why aren't you playing whatever? And I go, because it sucks. And he goes, all right, see you later. And that's about it. And so definitely not in our company. That does happen now a lot more in major corporations, but Chuck and I are very lucky in the fact that we work for SMG, where we have less than 100 stations around the country, and we have a lot of autonomy, and they do not mess with us, and it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, again, it's another one of those many things that I can't say enough good things about Tulsa, but our company rules, and
yeah,
it's wonderful. Like the owner of our company, I see him every day.
Wow.
How weird, you know? It's like
Right.
Clear Channel still, you're owned by a corporation of bean counters that are you're beholden to these stockholders and blah 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 blah. And it's like, with this, I can go up to him and go, hey, I really need to talk to you about needing $500 for t-shirts or whatever. And he's like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about it or whatever. It's like, it's not an email chain 90 chains long and talking to 4 vice presidents and whatever. So anyway, how do we pick the music? If it's good and we like it, we play it. And then it really does depend a lot on what people think. If we get overwhelming feedback on something that listeners think it sucks, then we stop playing it.
Right.
But the inverse, I guess, to that is there are songs that we play on the edge that no other station in the country plays. And that's not a tooting our own horn. That's it worked in Tulsa where it didn't work somewhere else. You have somebody like Meg Myers that is not nationally absolutely huge. She's big, you know, she's big to the people who really like her. But she's not absolutely huge. Well, in Tulsa, she's pretty darn huge, you know,
Yeah.
and we have a lot of those bands. Silver Sun do better here than they do in 99% of the entire country. Meg Myers is the exact same way. So we have these people that know that they can tour through here and maybe do a little bit better than they could somewhere else. And I think that just, again, goes back to Tulsa really liking music and really caring about music and being passionate about music in a way that a lot of other people are not. In Dallas, for example, their alternative radio station right now has the most abysmal ratings you can possibly imagine. Is that because it's the radio station's fault and they run a bad ship? Or is it the fact that Dallas doesn't care as much right now? They're in a cycle where they don't care as much about this kind of music. I couldn't tell you. I'm just really glad that I don't work there.
Gotcha. And then just really quick, how does it feel to be the first station in Tulsa to play Billie Eilish? Because y'all started playing her well before she blew up.
Yeah, I liked the fact that she was doing something that didn't sound like everybody else, 100%. I remember my kid was really into her before we started playing her. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Billie Eilish is a complete anomaly. I mean, that comes along once every never. And she really kicked in the door for everybody who had been a SoundCloud or YouTube or pre-TikTok or whatever sort of artist to be able to. I mean, Elvis Costello said one time that the best thing, I think it was Costello, it was either Costello or Pete Townsend, said that the new best thing that you're hearing, or whatever, I'm paraphrasing here, is not something that you're seeing on TV or radio or whatever it is, but it's somebody who's writing something right now in their bedroom. And I bungled that quote, by the way, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but you can look it up. But Billie Eilish and her brother are the perfect example of that. That whether you really love Billie Eilish's music or think that it's all generic nonsense, it sounds the same, whatever. And I know people on both sides of that fence, but the fact that she did it on her own, sitting around with her brother writing these songs, and now she is bigger and more powerful and worth more than the four of us times a bajillion.
Right.
Yeah.
Good on you. I mean, good for her. And the fact that she's female and showed all these other females that you can make it in what is still a predominantly male-driven industry. And now Billie Eilish has more power than I would say. I mean, would you say anybody in alternative, Chuck? I mean, she would have
absolutely.
to be the biggest thing in alternative right now. And I mean, more than Imagine
not only-
Dragons, more than 21 Pilots, and those would be your big three, more than
Yeah.
Dave Grohl. I mean,
And-
I would say
and-
that she's more powerful than Dave Grohl.
Yeah, and not only that, you can see by all the new stuff that is coming out right now what is hot, and guess what it is?
It's
It's these
spooky
female
stuff.
songwriters, and it's all of a sudden this whole format has been flipped on its side,
Yeah.
and it's kind of exciting. It's an exciting time right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, between Clairo, Girl in Red,
Mhm.
Beach Bunny, Billie Eilish, I mean, it's one right after the next, where people like Clairo and Beach Bunny, I think, are infinitely talented. Girl in Red as well. And they've all kind of taken that idea that we can write, make, and produce all these songs on our own, whether it's in our bedroom or wherever. I mean, Biba Doobie is another one.
Yep.
Where they can all make these records, and you don't necessarily have to have a ginormous label push behind you. But I would say that Billie Eilish is probably the most popular and maybe most powerful person in alternative music right now.
Yeah.
And so how do I feel about being the first to play her? I think it's great. Sure, whatever. I don't know English. I mean, it's not something that I really sit around and think about. I think it's great. I'm just glad that people responded. I remember when she came here, I'll always remember this day because I was out waiting with my kid to meet Billie Eilish, and I look over and it's Stephen Egerton from one of my favorite bands of all time, maybe the greatest punk rock band of all time, The Descendants, was in line as well with his kids. And we ended up talking. I've known Stephen for a real long time, and we ended up talking. He lives in Tulsa, and we ended up talking about just how funny it is that these two old middle-aged dudes are waiting with our kids to meet Billie Eilish. It's just like, just another day in Tulsa.
Yeah, and
A
to
rock
give you
legend waiting for his kids to meet Billie Eilish.
And to give you an idea, I think if observing Josh's mentality on music and stuff like that, he's not really reflective. He's always like, okay, so what's next? So what are we going to find next? What's coming next? I think that's a pretty strong way to go about things is to not sit there and go, oh, look at, I was so right on this and I was so right on this, instead of, using your time to go just try to find and search out and really figure out what's the next step. Who's the next artist?
Mhm.
That's a good point.
Well, too, and I don't know how much you want this to be like an inside baseball thing of like learning about radio, because I'm sure it's super boring for the 5 people that are still watching after some of my long-winded answers. But like with radio too, the way that people consume music now is completely different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. With Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, a lot of times people can, the song that you want more than anything else is one click away.
Right.
But in the old days, we relied on you to sit and listen to the radio, and we were curating a soundtrack for your life. So if you were having a breakup, you can flip on the radio and God, hopefully that one Lumineer song that's really going to make you bawl harder than anything else is going to be on, the radio right then, or whatever it is. And so my point in bringing that up was when Chuck said we're always looking for what's next. I remember playing whatever it was, some Billie Eilish song, maybe for my kid. And she's like, oh my God, the song is so overused. Everybody is so sick of this song. And I go, it came out a week ago. It's been out. It was Therefore I Am or something. And I go, Jesus, it's been out a week. And she's like, oh my God, a week too long. But she was like that about the Beach Bunny song that we just started playing. He's like, oh my God, everybody loves this song. I love Beach Bunny so much. I was the first person to listen to it. Like, here we go. All right, doesn't fall far from the tree or whatever. And but she was talking about how that Beach Bunny song was already played out or whatever, and we had just started playing it. Mm-hmm. And so, so the moral of this story is that my daughter will be running the radio station this time next week.
I was literally about to say
it'll be another morning show partner for Chuck.
Josh taken down by his own daughter. It's almost poetic.
I taught her well. I taught her to take no prisoners.
That's funny. So, you guys, how has radio changed since the onset of COVID-19?
Oh, that's a great one. Boy, I just went out and did, I think, our first live broadcast, and I can't remember how long. That's been a lot different. It's also, too, we're learning people have different patterns now. And we have to kind of rethink things, too, is when are they consuming the product? When are they, when people weren't driving to work, all of a sudden drive time wasn't necessarily the most important. Sometimes it was noon that was the most important time when people were going out and getting drive through food or whatever. I mean, it like everything else, it did flip a lot of things on its head. Boy, we really have it now, more so now than ever. You have to be able to do every single job up there, because in situations like this, when somebody might have come into contact with somebody with COVID or whatever, they're out for 2 weeks. And now all of a sudden there's somebody else who's got to wear that hat and do that job, because radio doesn't stop. It's 24 hours a day, and it's got to be on the air. And so we're lucky to have the crew we do have up there. I would say that.
Yeah, I also think that it's changed in the idea that we're trying to find new and interesting ways to keep you engaged. Where if we're not giving out concert tickets because there's no shows, we're not giving out meet and greet passes for you to hang out with your bands because there's no shows, then how are we going to, what can we give you to make you still want to listen to the radio? What can we give you to make you want to stay engaged with us and not forget about us? So I think that has a lot to do with it. And so now with things starting to very slowly open back up, we're talking about, are we going to give away trips? And if we do give away trips, what if we give away a trip to, Charles, you were telling me the other day that Buffalo is going to make you be vaccinated or whatever to get into the football game. So what if, let's just for giggles, say that we give away a trip to Coachella next year, and Coachella says, that you have to be vaccinated to get into Coachella? What if the person who wins is completely anti-vaccination? That's going to be a huge headache for me. But these are things that we're constantly thinking about. And, do we go, well, screw it, let's just not even give away a trip. Why don't we do this instead, or whatever? I don't know the answer to all those things. I know that right now we're looking at Christmas shows and whether that's going to happen. But it's been a weird thing of, we did not have a birthday bash last year. We did not have 2 Christmas shows last year. We didn't have a Halloween haunt last year. We didn't have a spring fling last year. We didn't have, we didn't get to do all of the things that ingratiate us to the audience. Mm-hmm. And so this year we're already looking at, the last shows that I saw were February of last year, when it was like White Reapers, Cold War Kids, and Silver Sun.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that was all in 1 month. And I think that was the last time that I saw any band. So we're looking at 14 months of no shows, or of me with no shows. I know that Keynes has done a couple of things and whatever. I know that Brady is starting to bring back shows and things. And so, it's changed dramatically in that way, because one of the main things that we do in this world is put on shows and get shows to come to town for you, the listener. And we haven't had that. So it's trying to find a way to keep you engaged, I guess. Yeah.
Gotcha. And I do have a really quick question that isn't on the docket, if that's okay. But we here at the Stevia show.
There's a docket? Where the hell's the docket?
Since it's y'all on Thursday.
Oh, I didn't see that. All right, go ahead. Hit me. Hit me the best shot, English.
So we at the Stevia show, we are very pro-vaccine and pro-science. And as I'm sure you all are too. Have you all had anybody call and give you insane conspiracy theories that you all are plants by the government or whatever, All
right, sure. Chuck, you talk for a second while I find that guy's thing.
Right. Yeah. No. Of course, and of course we do. And my favorite thing is Josh is really good at.
Hey, wait. Did he write to us on the Edge page or on my page?
I thought it was the Edge page.
Okay. Go. All right. Go ahead.
But he's real good at. They'll give you this long, 24-line diatribe on how, we're ruining this country, you're not keeping people free, blah, 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 blah. And Josh will always finish it with hey man, really appreciate you listening. And you know how that comes back, but it's perfect and it's great. And look, I understand people have different views and stuff like that. And we're not a political station. We're there to entertain you, give you some fun, give you some music. But yeah, I mean, there's points where I get to oh boy.
Yeah, I was just curious on that.
Did you find it?
No, and I don't remember what that cat's name was. Do you? God, I wish I could find it. So we have gotten it. Listen, I think a lot of the people that listen to us feel like you do, English, but I think a lot of people do not. And look, that's what makes America great. We can all disagree, sure, whatever. But the idea that yes, we have gotten plenty of things that say, let's see, what an Orwellian world we live in. Josh, you are doing nothing but, perpetuating the myth that this vaccination is helping. How dare you push your communist agenda on me? I know that you were bought and paid for by George Soros.
Oh no.
I mean, and they range, and let me reiterate, they range from the very well-spoken, grammatically correct ones to the exact opposite.
Right.
That, you'll have 390 words with no punctuation. And those are usually the ones that accuse, and it's always me. It's never you. They don't ever accuse you of anything.
And the best part is, I'm Lefty Louie over here. He's the one who's a little more center than I am. And
yet I'm the one that's always like, I bet you helped the Clintons bury Vince Foster's body. And it's just like, whoa, but it's always these like insanely long conspiracy theories that, I don't know. And I think it does have something to do with the sweepers that we run that say, hey, please wear a mask.
Sure.
And they do not say, you're in the wrong if you don't wear a mask. You're in the wrong if you think that you need more time to get vaccinated. You're in the wrong. We don't say anything like that because it is my job, our job, to not alienate people. And if you like 21 Pilots and you're anti-vaccination, great. I hope you listen to our radio station. I'm not going to yell at you for one thing or the other, but I can definitely tell you that I got vaccinated. Chuck got vaccinated. We wear a mask all the time. Yesterday, when Chuck was out doing his appearance and I was there too, we were both in masks. I think that Tulsa on a whole has been very good about it. And you can also see, when I used to give the numbers before, we said that we weren't going to update the numbers, but once a week for some odd reason.
Right.
I used to give the numbers out every day. And in the past 2 months, we've gone down 75%, something like that. And so, and I think the storms had a lot to do with that. People staying home. I think vaccinations had a lot to do with that, whatever. And I mean, I know that's not what we're here to talk about, but I do think that, we can all disagree.
Of course.
So, and that's totally fine. I know people who have not been vaccinated yet, and that doesn't make me like them any less. What was the question? There's a docket or something?
You answered the question.
You answered the question.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I do want to say that it's so interesting to me that people just like post on your Facebooks like unwarranted. Like you didn't really say anything on the radio, but they're like, Josh, you're evil.
Yep.
Like that's so weird to me because at no point in time do I want to just go post on somebody's Facebook and be like, I can't
But isn't that
believe-
Facebook?
Oh,
But isn't that
true.
Facebook though? too?
True.
I mean, don't we
True.
see that so much now where people just
Yeah.
feel like this is my opportunity to let people know what I think?
I just need to
Right.
tell them now.
Yes.
Well, and I also
So funny
think
to me.
but I think that's too is a byproduct of social media in general. That when I was growing up, or when Chuck was growing up, because I know that we're older than the two of you. Chuck's older than the two of you put together times 20. But when we were growing up, you could not get on a social media platform and say, hey, at Eddie Vedder, why don't you ever play corduroy when you come to my town?
Right.
And he would write you back. And there's a very good chance that you could get on Twitter right now and say, hey, at Aaron Bruno from AWOL, when are you coming to Tulsa? There's a better than good chance that he would write you back. That did not exist when we were growing up. So I do think that idea, people have grown up with that idea that your favorite rock stars, actors, authors, whatever, are really just a click away. When you see Taylor Swift picking up the tab for somebody's medical bills or college bills or whatever it was that Taylor Swift did, that I thought was really great. And that didn't happen back then. So I think that these people have kind of grown up in that system. And so I think that lends itself to people saying, oh, I heard Josh give the numbers for COVID-19 this morning. I know what that means. That means
Yep.
that he's one of the lizard people.
Yep,
And
yep.
then they feel the need to post on the Edge's Facebook and say, you're one of the lizard people, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
At least people think that you're important enough to be a lizard person. I want to be accused of being a lizard person. That sounds like something cool.
Keep swinging for the fences, English. You'll get there.
Will do. All right. So what are some common misconceptions about working in radio?
Oh, let's see here.
You make
Misconceptions.
a lot of money. That's one.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's probably the biggest one, isn't it? I mean, it's
That's probably the biggest one, I think, because when I was growing up, I thought that it was the same as being like an actor or being, something like that. But then like, I would bet that if you asked the people at Channel 8 or whatever, the same thing, they'd probably say kind of the same thing.
Gotcha.
Right. Oh,
Yeah,
Chuck,
I
who do you
agree.
think makes more money? Aaron Christie or us?
Aaron Christie makes more money than us. Yep.
Ron Terrell or us?
Ron Terrell.
Travis Meyer or us?
Yeah. Travis Meyer makes more than Eddie all of them together.
Yeah, Travis Meyer, though, he's on a different level, I think.
Okay, all right. Travis Meyer or me and you put together.
You're right. Oh, easy, Travis Meyer. and he's laughing at us. In fact, that's the money he burns every month. Is what we make.
Travis Meyer could run for governor and win. Like, no
I
problem.
think you're right.
Yeah, no problem. All right.
I think that's probably one. But then, and not to sound too hokey, but I do think that, if you're trying to get into radio to be rich, it's not going to happen. And so you figure that out really quickly, that you're not going to be rich. But that being said, we don't have to pay for concert tickets.
Right.
We don't have to
Yeah,
pay.
you get really cool experiences being in
Right,
radio.
yeah,
I
100%.
think it's about the experiences, and like when you're gonna be really old, you can look back and be like, I got to do all these things, I got to meet all these people. It didn't matter how much I got paid, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
and that's kind of like the industry that Lydia and I are in. We both work in higher education, and that is not one to make money, but the benefits are outstanding. So I guess it's just like a trade-off, in between a lot of things.
Oh wait, what do you guys do? You're teachers?
Oh, go ahead, Lydia. I'm sorry.
We work on like the administrative side of college. So I work in admissions and recruitment, and Stephen is an academic advisor. So we help students go to school.
Yep.
See, Chuck, you wanted to work. You wanted to be a teacher one day. English is a guy who can help you. He can advise.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now,
True.
you don't need any kind of pieces of paper for this job, do you?
We each have 2 pieces of paper. So,
We have 2 pieces.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Never mind.
yeah.
Toss that out, huh?
Yeah.
So
Should you be a substitute teacher?
I feel like I could.
Nobody.
Yeah, I feel like I could. That the problem though lies. I got that show I'm doing.
What show?
That show on Monday tomorrow that we're doing.
Oh, you can. Oh yeah. Well, what if you took the day off and went and and were a substitute teacher? You could come back, and that would be something fun for us to talk about. We could do that.
I would be great at it, by the way. And I feel like if you did the same thing, you would just bring in a movie, and that would be the only thing that would happen. In that
Josh
class.
would 100% be the substitute teacher that brings in the cart that has a TV on it, and we're just going to watch
That's
Bill
it.
Nye the Science Guy. And,
That's it.
and I'm not complaining. So,
You think you're going to get Bill Nye? You will probably get I don't know, some kind of Sopranos episode,
or like Golden Girls or
Listen.
something. Yeah.
Yes.
We could watch a Sopranos episode during American history. You could do all kinds of things. I would be all for it. Man, I think you'd be a great substitute teacher, Chuck.
There's always a possibility, I guess. Yes.
Oh, all right, that's good to know. I didn't know that you guys did college stuff. That's great.
Yep. So how do you think large media companies like iHeartRadio have changed radio?
Chuck.
Oh, yeah, they've eliminated so many jobs. Okay, so here's the thing. So if you think about
Yikes.
if you're thinking about a publicly traded company,
Mhm.
okay, so they're not beholden to let's give you the best radio product we can. They have shareholders who go, hey, I've invested in you. What did you do this last quarter? And how are you going to up my profits for next quarter? And so the problem is they are constantly trying to find ways to minimize costs and maximize what they're getting. So more and more, I mean, there's a bloodletting, Josh. How many times a year do we see one happen where it's across the country? They are just chopping jobs. We have good friends who are not working in the business right now because of the fact that they just went across the board and fired a bunch of people. Because again, they're not concerned about putting the best product out there. They're concerned about meeting their shareholders' expenses or expectations, and that has nothing to do with doing great radio.
It looks like the iHeart stock, by the way, was down 0.08 on Friday.
They are so far in debt. It is asinine how far in debt iHeart is. You really, if you looked at the numbers, you would go, how is this possible? How can a company be allowed to continue that far in debt? But they are, and they do.
Yeah, I don't know what they are now. I know that at one point, 7-8 years ago, they were $16 billion in debt. And I mean, you're polishing brass on the Titanic at that point. I mean, I remember I was interviewed for a podcast in LA. After I had left LA, we were talking about the business of radio, and we got out a calculator and added up if iHeart had sold every radio station that they owned, would it pay off their 16 billion debt? And the answer was not even remotely. No. And so, but it's not just them. And this isn't a time for us to just sit and rip on all these corporations, because, you know, at the beginning, they were extremely important, especially to alternative. But now it is them and Intercom and Cumulus and whatever. There's a million different huge corporations that it's obviously a business. So when they do cut people, they are trying to find one person who can wear 20 hats this week. And then if they drop somebody next week, that one person's going to have to wear 21 hats or whatever. Look, it's a business. I 100% get that. And I'm not here to bemoan the fact that iHeart, you know, does what they do or whatever. But the amount of markets that they have where there is one live person in the building or one live person on the radio station, it has taken kind of the fun out of what we do. And yes, and it's, I mean, we have a friend, Lynn Hernandez, who worked at KMOD that Chuck and I have both known for years and years and years, who was recently let go. So if you're watching this and you have a radio station, you want to hire Lynn Hernandez, super nice guy. Just look him up on Facebook. But you know, it's a business. And again, this harkens back to what I was talking about earlier. We are very, very lucky in the fact that we work for this kind of mom and pop radio station that can ride out these waves, because nobody knew that COVID was coming. Right. You know, right. And we can sit here and throw iHeart under the bus all day long, but it's not like they knew that this was coming. And so when you have, at one point, I think it was 789 radio stations. And so when you have that many payrolls trying to pay, you know, plus your rent, plus your ASCAP BMI fees, plus your electric bills, plus your whatever, I mean, I can't imagine what their monthly overhead was. And so when something like this happens and Joe Schmo Auto Dealership in Cedar Rapids has decided that they are losing money, so they're not going to advertise as much on your radio station anymore. And so then you go, oh, well, radio makes money only solely through advertising. What are we going to do? I know, let's cut Steven. He's the morning show's third producer. Can we get along with two? Yes, we can. Boom, Steven's gone. Then in another 6 months, when you realize that quarter two also sucks, because the other Joe Schmo automotive dealership in Cedar Rapids across the street, the Hyundai dealership, they're not going to do it anymore either. So you go, can we get rid of Steven 2 Electric Boogaloo? Boom, he's gone too, you know, and you start, you know, again, it's a business. I completely understand it. And that's why Chuck and I are very lucky where we work, because, you know, our boss always uses this phrase, a portfolio of people, and that it's like a family. And, you know, I think that I can speak from experience. When I got fired in Dallas the first time, my boss told me, and it was an iHeart station at the time, my boss told me, he goes, you got to remember, they don't know who you are and they don't care. You know, you are a name on a piece of paper to them. Yep. But to our boss, there are no names on a piece of paper. Like, our boss knows all the people that work for us. Right. You know? So again, I mean, whether it's iHeart, whether it's Intercom, whether it's Cumulus or whatever. But I mean, I also find it very interesting that we're even doing questions on a podcast that aren't about Billie Eilish and that are about iHeart, because 10 years ago or whatever, people didn't think like that. People didn't think about, like, who's the parent company of the radio station I work for? But with the transparency of the internet over the years, you've had things like, oh, iHeart is the evil empire, or Cumulus fired my favorite DJ. And 10 years ago, you would have said, my favorite DJ got fired by my favorite station. Insert name of radio station here. Yep. But now with the internet, you go, I know who it was.
Right.
Yeah.
It was Bob Pittman at iHeartRadio, and I know what his salary is,
Yeah,
and I know
right.
that and you just go, what? Like Bob Pittman doesn't know who you are. You shouldn't give a crap what he is. It's like
Right.
it's the weirdest thing to me how this business has become so much more transparent or more in the public eye. Yeah, it's just and maybe that has to do with things like the iHeartRadio Music Festival or whatever.
Well, it does. All of a sudden, they started branding themselves as a company that owns radio stations, as opposed to letting the radio station brand itself. And
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a very much more eloquently way of putting it than all the stuff that I said. Agreed.
All right. Well, we just have 2 more questions for you all. So the first, the next one is, so local music is something that we here at the Stevia Show, we're, really passionate about that. We've had countless bands on. So how can we have more local music in the rotation on Z104.5? Or is that even possible?
Yes, of course it's possible. Tell them all to send it to me. Again, I think what we hear a lot of the time is, well, why isn't there more local music on the radio station? And I go, oh, really? Like who? And they go, oh, it's Johnny and the Meters. And you go, really? Johnny and the Meters never sent me anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make them send you. Okay, well, then tell them to send us. So, again, if you do the work and we think it's good, then we'll play it. It really is as simple as that.
Oh, wow.
I love that it's that simple. I always thought, and like in my head, radio was like, nobody gets on the radio unless they really want you on the radio, right? But
there's a standard too. I mean, you have to be good. I mean, we're playing we play Cliff Diver right now, a local band here.
Mm-hmm.
But Josh and I really listened to it and both agreed, didn't we? That, it fits what we do. Here's the other thing too is, you may be the greatest guitar player ever played, but if you're not playing alternative music, no, we're not going to play you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said about what kind
you're
of
not going to play some country music on your station, are you?
Right. I mean, but yeah, the first time, the fact that the singer for Cliff Diver worked at the radio station years and years and years ago, Joey did, and that had absolutely nothing to do with us playing Cliff Diver. And I will be the first to admit that we do not play a heck of a lot of local music. There's no one reason for that or another reason for that. I would love to see more local bands send us stuff, 100%. But like Chuck said, the idea of, we'll play it because it's local. And I do think, and this is not meant as a Tulsa thing. This was more about when I was in Dallas. There was a lot of, well, I'm a local band, so why aren't you supporting me? I was like, because you're terrible. I mean, because your songs are garbage. And so then, but the ones that did get played were fantastic. But also just because you are a great band doesn't also mean that you will fit in with what we are doing on the station. That's also very, very true. Where there may be a really good hardcore punk band that I may love to listen to in my car, that might not fit in with what the idea of playing something for the masses is. And who knows, but maybe you are the hardcore punk band that will break through that and send it to us. Please, I would love to hear it. So my email is josh@edgetulsa.com, josh@edgetulsa.com, not the Edge Tulsa, just josh@edgetulsa.com. And yes, every local band, please load me up, send me everything that you have. I would love to hear it, seriously.
Awesome.
That's cool. That's really cool that you guys are willing to listen. So,
sure.
So you kind of touched on this earlier, but we were going to ask it just to see if you have any more deets on it. So with concerts slowly returning, can we expect another Edge event during the winter?
Josh,
I think it's very likely. Obviously, I can't say 100% because we could go through another wave. Who knows? Sure. But I do know. I doubt it will be with any band from overseas. I can tell you that. I have been talking to a lot of people, and I don't think that a lot of the bands from overseas. I know that. Hey, when is this episode going to air?
Tomorrow at 6 a.m.
Okay. Geez, look at the turnaround on that.
Yeah. See.
Yep. I record. We record, and then I edit the same night. So
there's a lot of editing going on here, I bet. So I know that the Rocklahoma lineup, there was one band that I thought was definitely going to be on it, and their manager said that they're a band from overseas, and he said I wouldn't bet on a whole lot of overseas bands coming to America to play around the wintertime. But I do foresee having some sort of edge event in the fall or winter, and if possible two, because we've kind of had a history of we did one Christmas show forever at the Brady, one a year. And then we got into the idea of, we had all these bands that we wanted to come for Christmas and we couldn't fit them all on one show. So then we started doing the two shows of one at Brady and one at Canes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to go back to that.
Yeah.
And especially in this year, good God. I mean, I think we would all like to see shows 7 days a week. And I do think when it opens back up, I think that we're going to see a lot of these bands, if I'm Group Love, if I'm Silver Sun Pickups, if I'm Meg Myers, if I'm Arctic Monkeys, if I'm whoever, it has been a sucky year for money. All these bands want to be back on the road, that, they make their bread and butter through concert tickets and merch, and you can only do so much online. And so I know that they all want to be back out there. I mean, I've personally talked to a ton of those people. That I just got a note from Group Love the other day that said, I can't wait to be back in Tulsa. I was like, well, duh. we all know these things, so let's make it happen. I think everybody's just waiting until it's 100% safe, and we know what it's going to be like. I think that I don't know what it's going. I was about to say I know what it's going to be like, and then I trailed off because I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know what going to a show at a fully capacity Canes Ballroom or Vanguard or the Brady is going to be yet. And I don't know if there's mandatory masks. I don't know if it's going to be vaccinations. I don't know if the bands are going to want to do it. I was talking with somebody the other day and they said, well, do you think that bands will play in states that have lower numbers than states that don't and route tours that way? And I was like, good Lord, what a world we live in.
Yeah.
Where somebody,
wow.
I'm willing to play Oklahoma, but I'm not willing to play Kansas. I'm willing to play Missouri, but I'm not willing to play Illinois or whatever. And you go, okay, well, people know how to drive. Like since the Eisenhower administration, we've had highways and byways. We know what the interstate system is. And so I don't know. Are we going to see vaccinations? Are we going to see mandatory masks? I couldn't tell you. So I think that we're trying to navigate this the exact same way that everybody else is. And so we just happen to be in the position where we're begging Royal Blood or Arctic Monkeys or AWOL Nation or whoever to go, well, don't you, come on, let's give it a try. We can put on a show. But you also don't want to be, I have bands that I've been watching online that say, okay, this tour is happening. And then a week later, well, we're going to push it back just a few weeks. And then after the seventh reschedule or whatever, I just saw My Chemical Romance pushed everything back to 2022 now. Which wasn't a surprise by any means. I think everybody knew that they were going to do it, but nobody wants to be the bearer of bad news too and put on a show and then go, hey, guess what? We have the greatest show in the world for you. And then 3 weeks later go, sorry, we're not going to do that after all. And then we're going to, trying to book bands is one of the biggest pains in the neck you can possibly imagine. Because if you get all these people on one day and then it gets rescheduled, it's very difficult to get all of them to come back 7 months from now or whatever when you think it's going to be better. And so I don't know. The answer to your question is, I really hope so. Our fingers are crossed, our toes are crossed. I hope everything is going to get back to normal soon, because I think we all want to see live music, especially here in Tulsa.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time today to be on our podcast. That's it.
I can do this all day.
Hey, if you want to, we're already an hour and a half in, so we can keep going. So
I blocked out 4 hours for this.
Did you really?
I think Chuck's arm's probably getting tired from holding his phone for so long today.
I got a question. How shaky has that camera been? Because I haven't been able to tell, but I feel like it's been quite shaky.
No, it's been steady.
No, it's
You're
been
good.
great.
Oh, okay.
See, this is why you need a PC. That's what I'm at. The PC.
At least a laptop, Chuck. At least a laptop.
Well, I left it at the studio. That was dumb. Yeah. So I got a phone.
Hey, thanks for having us on your show.
Yes.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate it.
All right. Wow. Huge shout out to Josh and Chuck for being on the show. Lydia, how much did you learn? Because I learned a whole lot.
I learned so much. It was fantastic. Josh and Chuck are two cool dudes, and I'm so happy that they decided to join us today.
Yeah, me too. So we've been really looking forward to this episode. We're glad that we were finally able to release it for you all. But of course, you can follow us on all the social media platforms with a handle at The Stevia Show. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whichever podcast app you listen to. If you're on YouTube, just search for The Stevia Show and subscribe with the notification button.
Make sure to check out our streams. We stream at least once a week. Streams can be found on Twitch at twitch.tv/lidwins and twitch.tv/stvn92. Follow us on social media to find stream schedules. Anchor and Patreon producers are able to join in on multiplayer streams as well.
Yes, and the local music showcase is coming back. I think I'm going to bring it back this week. So we're looking.
And I'm excited. When I saw that, I was like, "Yes, Steven, yes, do it."
I think
a lot of people really like that.
Yeah, and I think talking with Josh and Chuck really inspired me because then I can pretend to be on the radio on Twitch.
Yes, yes, exactly. You're Twitch's new radio DJ.
There we
go.
It's
the beginning of something that people don't normally do, right? Like I'm excited.
Something like that, right? And we also have merchandise available through our links in our bio and our show notes. So whenever you visit us online, check out our link tree and click on merch, and we ship nationwide as well.
Thank you to the following for supporting The Stevia Show. Today's episode is brought to you by Bravado Wireless. Bravado Wireless is your go-to when it comes to all things connected. Now that spring has entered the chat, it's time for some spring cleaning, and that might mean it's time to upgrade that old phone. Starting April 15th, you can get half off a brand new iPhone 12 or Samsung S9 for new customers as part of our new premium data plan. For more information, call your local Bravado Wireless store or head to bravadowireless.com.
As well as community members like you. Remember, you can support us on Anchor or Patreon for as little as 99 cents a month. Thank you. But for now, Team Stevia, we will see you on episode 117. And for now, this is Steven.
This is Lydia.
And we will see you later.
Bye.
Bye.